right, coaches, so you've got an athlete that's experiencing some hip pain or low back pain in their squat, or maybe you've taken them through our supine hip flexion test and you find that they're short and or painful. So what do? Right? What are you guys going to do in the meantime? You got wall balls in class that day, their hips annoying them, what do? So now we're going to give you some answers to this. So and basically what we're looking at in the short term, we're going to modify that athlete, right? Maybe they just did a whole lot of squatting that week and their anatomy is a little bit sizzled and they just need to take a break from it. So we're going to walk through how to modify it. Long term, right, you want to actually solve what's going on. Like if they have a short hip flexion test, why? And let's fix that. Or if maybe they're bilateral dominant as opposed to unilateral, okay, well let's figure that out and then make a program for them. But when it's that day, what are you going to do? So the first thing that we're going to do is we can alter the range of motion, right? If the pain is really only happening below 90 or deep in the squat, it's okay. It's okay not to squat to full depth that day. That might sound like a dirty word, right? But it's okay not to squat to full depth that day. So what we're gonna do is for any sort of squatting, if it's like a front squat, a back squat, something like that, and it's only in the bottom, all right, keep them a little higher that day. Put them on a box, give them a target to sit to, right? Because now they're still going to be stressing their CNS, right? They're still going to be working their core. They're still going to be working a large range of motion, not full, but a large range of motion for that day, but they're not going to perpetuate any sort of pain. So that athlete's still, and not to mention the psychological advantage of, oh, I actually did something today. So that athlete is going to get a large benefit of being in the gym and actually just box squatting that day, as opposed to saying, oh, I can't go to the gym, I can't squat today, so why should I even go? Right? So you guys see where I'm going with that? The other thing that we can do is alter full Olympic movements to power. That's pretty simple, right? If diving underneath the bar and catching 100 or 200 or 300 pounds is irritating that hip, all right, let's not do that day. Let's not make it worse because that's all that's going to happen. That's the only thing that can really happen with that. So first thing you want to do is modify the range of motion. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to alter the number of legs involved, right? If squatting just isn't happening that day, or they're resistant to wanting to box squat, all right, well you're gonna switch over to a lunge variation or a step up, right? Keep in mind that a lunge variation is going to be a little bit shorter range of motion, so that can be a good place to start. A step up is a single leg variation, but it's going to be a little bit more deeper in the hip depending on the height of the box. So this is a little bit more advanced and aggressive than a simple lunge. And you can use whatever lunge you want, reverse, forward, walking. We have a separate video that goes over the hierarchy of those. Another thing that you can do is alter the dynamics. What we find is some athletes, they have a hard time keeping a tempo when the tempo is dictated to them, such as wall balls, but they can goblet squat without a problem, or they can front squat heavy without a problem, but wall balls are an issue with them. And really it has nothing to do with the position, it really has to do with how the stiffness, right? It's how quickly they get in and out of that. So what we're going to do, right, is for that subset of the population where it's kind of a separate problem, is instead of making them do this dynamic movement that causes them pain, is we're going to say, well, you can squat in a less dynamic fashion. You're still going to maintain your stimulus. So why don't we just have you goblet squat? Or front squat for that matter, or do light thrusters, dumbbell thrusters, whatever, right? But you're gonna find that for those people, this stuff, this more, less dynamic stuff is actually better for their hip. When it comes to Olympic lifting, I use the example of clean. You can also use the snatch, right? You can, it's every minute on the minute squat cleans today. Okay, well, that person can power clean and then go into the squat. Great. Let them do that. They're still getting that, they're still getting the strength portion of the actual clean. They're still getting the strength portion in training that squat. So life is good for them. Now, keep in mind, this is the short term. This is just the short-term modification. This is not the solution, right? This is not, okay, this person for the rest of their life is going to be doing goblet squats and then power plus front squat. No, that's not what we want for them. We want them back doing what they need to do without modification. So the long-term solution is actually solve the problem. Go through the assessments, figure out where they're weak, figure out where they're missing range of motion, send them to a provider if they need it. If it's outside of the scope of something that you can handle, find someone for them. And really, that's going to be the long term. So here are some tools for you with having a problematic squat and how to modify in the short term. But as always, we want to get to the long-term solution and really figure it out for them so that they're in class without modifications.